Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time of day you're watching this little video on the interweb. But it's Sid. I'm back. I'll tell you what, I got a treat today, folks. Where do I start? This gentleman from I Falls. He played high school hockey for the Broncos, won a state title, but he spent many years in the WHA as a member of the Fighting Saints as well. Played at the University of North Dakota, where he played in a pair of, NCAA tournaments with some battles against some of the best back in the day. Suited up with the United States national team on numerous occasions, including the '72 Winter Olympics in Sapporo, Japan, where we'll have some great stories about that. Coming up with a surprising silver medal. And he was a tournament MVP, and we will discuss this. He had 51 saves against the Czechs. Probably the best of any USA goaltender performance in Olympic history, in my opinion. He's inducted in the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame in 1998, in the IIHF Hall of Fame in 1999. Lefty, it's Mike Lefty Curran, regarded as one of the top USA goaltenders of all time, and he's achieved high school hockey pinnacle by winning a title, college hockey. I mean, I don't know where. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about this gentleman. I'm excited to talk to him. We'll have a lot of different stories, and I don't know if we'll have enough time in the day to even discuss everything that we could talk about with Lefty. But I'm excited to bring him in, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be Mike Lefty Curran. Lefty,
Hi, Sid.
good morning to you.
Yeah, well,
Did I miss anything? I'm
inviting
sure
me.
there was a list. That list is this long. I couldn't think of everything I'd talk about, but I hope I got some of the key points for you there on your intro.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you to be here with you, enjoying it.
Well, Lefty, what I typically like to do when I talk to people, and the original one I did was with Don Ross. We talked about, where it all started. Growing up in the Falls, and people today don't realize how lucky we have it with all the indoor ice and stuff. And I'd like to find out, when you were a kid growing up north, how did you get involved with hockey, and who started you between the pipes? I mean, a lot of times it's like, well, let's put the guy who can't play the best. He's not the best or can't skate that well. Let's get him between the pipes. You can't hurt us there. So how did it all start playing hockey, and how did you end up playing goalie?
Well, the story is pretty much the story that you grew up with in Roseau. We all started to play hockey when we were little, and none of us were goalies when we were 4 or 5 or 6 because we just weren't playing goal then. We were just skating and playing and running up and down the streets where we played outdoors and street hockey and all that. So I was like any other kid from northern Minnesota, and I was like 5th grade. I think it was trying out with, I think it might have been called then a bantam. Bantams were young then. Bantam wasn't like today's age. Bantams were like 5th, 6th graders. And as a 5th grader, the guy who was running the team for tryouts kind of indicated to me that I might not make the team because I wasn't very big. And I asked him if I could play goal, and that's how it started. He said, "You want to put the pads on? Go ahead." So I put the pads on, and I thought, this is kind of fun. And, the story goes on, but, I figured I get to play all the time too. The rest of those guys could only play every 3rd shift or 2nd shift, and I got to play the whole game. So I got a little greedy with it too. But I really enjoyed it as a kid, and that started 5th grade as a goaltender. Yeah.
Well, you said one thing that I think all of us goalies are a little goofy, because you said you kind of liked it, and I don't know anybody who says they like have pucks shot at them. So you gotta have that mentality too.
Well, I know, but when we were in 5th, 6th grade, nobody was shooting the puck too hard back then.
No.
No,
and remember, that was back before the banana blade too, right? They didn't have the banana, so they could shoot like Bobby Hull.
Yeah, that happened during my years with North Dakota in the mid to late 60s. That's when the big screens, the big hooks were showing up from Christian Brothers and Warroad. Scared the hell out of me. They come into our locker. They come into the locker room. Some guy was selling them. He had a big pile of them over his shoulder, and then he just spilled them out onto the floor. And all the guys were just drooling over these sticks, and I'm thinking this is going to be crazy. Yeah, I went fast.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm gonna you talked about how you got into goaltending and moved your way up to the high school. So I want to pull up a couple pictures here for you, and let's talk about the high school days. So this one in particular, first of all, let me see what I got here for you. This team right here. Look at that young fella in front. Who's that
Yeah,
character there? Look at how
yeah.
that young
Well,
guy looks.
that was myself as a senior in high school, and right behind me is the best little player I've ever played with. As far as size and everything, that was just a pile of skill you wouldn't believe. That's Huffer Christensen right behind me. And that would be Larry Roach behind that. He was a sophomore. He became the goaltender for the next 2 years. He was a lefty as well. And then the rest of the club, you'll see behind him.
Sure.
In fact, there's a blummer. There's a blummer from Roseau on that lineup,
Really?
by the way. You probably didn't know that story, but he left Roseau when he was probably in ninth grade. And he was one of our best players, Glenn Blummer. He was our captain along with Jim Thompson back on that 62 club. Glenn was a senior as well, and he's in that lineup right there.
You said the guy next to you was the next goalie, and I kind of hopped around. Excuse me for that, but
Yeah.
you said he was another lefty.
Yeah.
What is it with the left-handers that came out of the Falls? By the way, was there a
I
reason
don't
behind
know.
that?
It started back in the 50s when I was learning how to play when I was in fifth, sixth grade. There were two lefties in the 50s. And then in the 60s, there was myself. And behind the guy who backed me up there, who I mentioned earlier, Larry Roach, he was a lefty. And then after Larry was Ronnie Beck, who was a lefty. and then maybe even Peter Waslovich in 72 might have been a lefty.
Yeah, I
They
can't
won a
remember
state
watching Skipper with
championship.
the.
Yeah.
I think he was right. I don't remember. My memory escapes me sometimes too, actually, because a few pucks I actually stopped with my melon. I don't remember. But when we look at that team, there's
Mm-hmm.
a couple other things I want to bring up, and I want you to talk about this. Your experiences with this guy right here at the helm.
Well,
Can you discuss playing with that gentleman there?
he was like a father to me. I mean, he and I were very close, and and I think of Larry. I think of he was an All-American goaltender. A lot of people probably know that, but for the Gophers back in the late 40s, very early 50s, 50, and I was always amazed when I reflected back on my career with the Falls. He didn't give me a lot of direction or tell me a lot of things that I should do, and he never critiqued my game to any extreme in any extreme way. Like you'd think that a goalie who's your coach would probably be in your head a lot, trying to tell you how to play the game. He kind of let me go. The one thing that's interesting about him, though, is he did tell me three things, and he used to repeat that a lot. He said, "Lefty, you gotta play your angles. Angles are really important, and you got to take the room away. In other words, you got to get out and face the shooter and take space away from them." Uh, he really thought that those things were real important, and they were at our time. Back in our day, our equipment was not big. Goalies could be 5'8" like me, so you had to do two or three different things, and that was the only thing he talked to me about. I mean, he just kind of let me go, and I think he was like that with all the goaltenders that he coached.
He did something right, Lefty, because I
Yep.
look at the record. I look at the record that year when you guys won it. I think it was. I
Mm-hmm.
think your goals against or was it 0.78? They said 0.78.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
that was my junior year.
Oh, was it you?
We actually had a more talented team my junior year than my senior year, but we lost the state the region final in Eveleth at the hip. We lost to Duluth East. And Duluth East had won the state championship the year before. And we had beaten them during the year. And we had not lost a game other than an outdoor game in Coleraine, I believe. So we had one loss that season playing into the region final. And we lost the game 3-2. They had a nice team, and they beat us fair and square. We ended up in the box a little too often, Offer and Slop John O'Leary, and we had another kid by the name of Gary Balson, Joe Balson, who was a wonderful, wonderful player as well. And anyway, long story short, they the goals against that year were pretty low, but we had really good teams, so we played a lot of big goals by us, big scores, and small scores by our opponents.
So that year you won it, Lefty. I'm looking at that. You started out, who'd you beat? First round, you beat Richfield 4-0.
Yes.
And then you had a tight one against another range team there, Coleraine 3-2. And
yeah, Greenway.
lo and
Yeah,
behold, and lo
really
and
good,
behold, you
really
faced,
good club, Greenway.
and then you
Yeah,
faced the Rams, the Roseau
in
squad,
the
and you
final,
shut them out. You
shut
shut
him
them out.
out. Even Oscar gave me some accolades. He said they interviewed him after the game. I still keep it, some of this stuff, and I like to read it again. And he goes on about the game, and then he says at the end, of course, as an old goaltender himself, he'd probably say something like this. He wanted to give me a little attention. He says, but the toughest thing that we had to face that day was that goaltender. He was just too stingy. And I thought, boy, oh boy, from Oscar, that's really quite a compliment.
And Oscar's a
Yeah,
guy that I respect because I tell you what, when he was still alive, he'd come out with the little guys like me when I was young.
yeah,
And you could hear his voice still. He
yeah.
was one that commanded the room. So much like I'm sure Mr. Larry Ross over there.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, he was special. He was special for sure. That Roseau or that Coleraine team that we beat in the semis, the, we went 27-0-1, and they went 24-4, and all four losses were to us.
wow.
Twice during the season, and then it tightened up to 3-2 in the region final. But we had the back door, so they came. And then we face each other in the semifinals, and it's a 3-2 game again. And whenever I run into some of these Coleraine kids, I haven't seen them in years, but 10, 15 years back, state tournaments, we'd all get together, run into a room together or something. I'd kid them a little bit, and I'd say 24-4. You guys didn't like us much, did you?
But
Oh boy!
can you talk? Let's
And
talk
Rube,
about that a little bit.
Was the goaltender or the coach. By the
I
way,
was just gonna. You beat
Roseau's
me.
Rube. Rube was coaching
I know
those
you beat
teams.
me to the punch. Rube
Yeah.
Bjorkman was the coach, so they had a Roseau tie there, and Rube's
Mm-hmm.
still
Mm-hmm.
alive to this day. So pretty amazing. Can you talk about those days? We talked about the back door. People today don't understand how it worked because it's a lot different now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that back door, because Northern hockey was, it was the king back in the day. So discuss that a little bit because there was some good teams: Roseau, Warwick, Falls, Coleraine, Duluth. Talk about those battles. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, that back door thing. As a kid, we never thought about that too much. We didn't have a lot of people talking to us about this is the year that the back door is there, so we can lose the region and still go to the state. It was kind of like it wasn't in our minds that much. I'm sure with the coaches and some of the staff members and other people, they probably thought about those things. But yeah, sometimes it was very opportunistic. When we were, I think about when, which year was it? Halleck came in with Roseau, and we ended up playing Halleck and beating them like 11-0 in the quarterfinal game. So the backup team from Region 7 that year was probably as good as our Bronco team that won the state tournament. So you got these lopsided situations, and they didn't really straighten that out until with the backdoor thing, they finally played off, didn't they? I think you're right, Sid. You probably remember that. They started playing each other. The runner-ups in each region had to play each other for one more game during the week to get to St. Paul. Yeah.
Now, nowadays, some of these section games, I mean, I look at Section 7 this year in single A. I mean, any one of those, like there's 4 teams in that section now, and only
Right.
one is going to be able to go, but they're all equally as good, could probably win the title this year. It just
Sure.
shows you that those section games are sometimes better than the state tournament games now. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. And by the way, I'm kind of hopping back again, going back to that state tournament you guys won. I look at the rosters and some of those other teams when you won,
Hmm. Hmm.
that your South St. Paul happened to be there.
Yeah.
And I see Wooger was on that team too, Doug
Yeah.
Woog. And I look at
Yeah.
some of these names, and I mean,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
amazing when you look at hockey history and some of the people that played in the tournament back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, it's just crazy. So I had to
Yeah.
bring up that name. Look, I was looking at some of the other rosters, and really amazing. So we talked about that tournament team. We talked about playing with Christensen. I wanted you to discuss him because he's an icon as well. Um, can you just give me a minute or so about him and
Sure.
the experiences of being around him?
Well, we played together. I played with Huffer when we were midgets. That would be 15-year-olds. I played over in Canada when I was 15, and I played with Huffer, who was from Canada, from Fort Francis.
Yep.
And that's when I got to know Huffer. We went to the Northwestern Ontario Midget Championships in Thunder Bay, Fort William at that time. And we went to the finals and lost in 3 overtimes for the championship in Northwestern Ontario. And he put on a clinic. There were 2 or 3 guys in that tournament that went on to play in the NHL. Huffer put on a clinic, and they watched probably. That's how good he was. So then I find out a year later, when I'm a junior, that he's coming over to the Falls to play. I'm thinking, I don't believe this, but hey, we got ourselves a hell of a hockey player
Gotta
from
bring it.
Francis. So yeah. So Huffer comes to town and he plays with us again. And I mean, the Eveleth fans did not honor him at all. They treated him like you would treat a Canadian if you were going to Eveleth to play the Eveleth people. They didn't like it at all. Huffer, they used to boo him. The 3rd time we played against him, our senior year, his junior year, we won 7-2 or something like that, 7-1, and they gave him a standing ovation. They gave him a standing ovation because they finally recognized his talent and his
How good he
skill.
was.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then, of course, he goes on to Duluth, and
Yep.
nobody's played hockey for UMD. And I'm talking about some good hockey players out of Duluth.
Absolutely.
Nobody performed the way he did for 4 years. It was unbelievable.
And that's why I wanted you to talk about him for a few minutes, because there's so many great players
Yeah.
to play with.
Well,
But I wanted to.
then it went on. We played against each other. North Dakota against UMD. There was a game that I played against. We played against each other up in Grand Forks. We went into OT. He come off the right wall. He comes off the right wall, beats my D, comes charging in on me from the far right, and now he's swooping in on me. And I said, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take space away from that little bugger. He went right around me. I was out. I got up on my skates again, and the door to the locker was right there. I was reaching that door while he was putting in the net in overtime.
Yeah.
He laughed about it afterwards. He said, "You did." I says, "Yeah, I was on my way out when you were going in." Yeah. So then we joined and played on a world tournament in '69. in Stockholm. And then in 71, we played the whole year together. It was the U.S. club again, preparing for the 72 Olympics. And then we played again in 72 as Olympians. And then we played together for 2 more years with the Fighting Saints in world hockey. It was a trip. He took me on a trip that was pretty amazing. I always say
That's what I want. I just I had to interject because you could talk about him for quite a while, but I wanted
yeah,
to make sure you took a minute or two to talk about him because he
yeah,
is an icon as well.
definitely.
Um, Now let's step back again. I apologize because I'm hopping around, but we're still sticking within the falls and those younger days because it correlates to today. Um, Now, because of whatever reasons, the Broncos only play Fort Francis one time. I guess Canada only allows them blah blah to play
Right.
one time. They won't let them come down to the States now. So the Broncos are going across the border. But back in the day, you guys, that was actually where you played indoors, right? You played everything outside. The only indoor rink was across the border, correct? So you had to go over there to play indoors.
Exactly. Yeah, we look forward to that. You know, when you were a kid, up through ninth grade, you played outdoors. Uh, the people in Roseville were very fortunate because you had indoor hockey for many years before that, and a beautiful, beautiful arena with that wood on the ceiling and the whole 9 yards. And then Eveleth, the hip, 1920. Come on, they had that indoor rink and everything else. We didn't have any of that. It was all outdoor. So all the development took place outdoors. Occasionally we'd get to Fort Francis and play a game when we were little guys, but it was rare. And part of developing your game and hoping that you could become a Bronco someday was that you got to play indoors in the Memorial Arena in Fort Francis because that was our home. So it was a nice carrot, if you will, to be inside. We used to get on a bus, put our gear on in the falls in the locker room, and then we would travel with the bus and go to practice and go to games.
Yeah. A little
It
bit
was
more difficult now. Now though, everybody's got to have a passport and they got to make sure they're all square to go across. But
well,
back,
yeah,
back in the day,
well, that's
that's how you
true.
played.
Yeah,
So
they just, yeah,
these kids today have to appreciate what they have at Bronco Arena, and you guys played outside, especially on a day like today when it's 18, 20 below without a windshield. You throw in the
absolutely.
windshield, pretty dang cold outside playing hockey.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure.
But well, before I move on, anything else you want to mention about the Bronco days before? Because there's so much I could bring up, but anything else about the Bronco days before we go? Because I will throw this up here. You look at this. This is the I gotta see if I can get it up here. Right
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
That's a banner in Bronco Arena with all the we talked about the days the Broncos. Look at all those titles, and you look at the conference and state championships. Been a
well,
while since they won one back in '95, but
well, you know what's crazy, Sid? When you look at, I made a couple notes here because I know that we were going to talk about high school hockey a little bit. So I want to honor some of the other programs that were there at the same time that we were there. Uh, for about 2 decades, from 45 through 66, uh, there was a lot of success coming out of Roseau, Eveleth, St. Paul Johnson, International Falls. We sort of hogged it all for those 2 decades. I mean, I've got here a note that says 6 championships with Eveleth. I'm including 93 as well because they did win one then. I've got St. Paul Johnson listed at 47, 53, 55, 63 from Johnson, 4 of them. Then you got Roseau, 46, 58, 59, 61, and 1990. That would be 5 state champions coming out of Roseau. In International Falls, I've got 7 listed here: 57, 62, 64, 65, 66, 72, and 95. I mean, that was northern Minnesota, and that was state high school That was hockey.
Yep.
They used to say the North is coming back to win another tournament every year, Someone from the North, other than Johnson.
And times have changed, Lefty. It's sad to say when you say Johnson, now there's only one program in St. Paul,
Sad
one
story.
program in Minneapolis.
Sad story.
You even see some of the bigger cities like Burnsville, Apple Valley, they have co-op. And
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a lot of different reasons why, the demographics has changed. It's become such an expensive sport, let's be honest. That's why I do what I do on the side, helping kids with sticks. It's
Yeah.
gotten really crazy. Um, but yeah, I really appreciate you mentioning that because back in the day, that's where hockey was up north,
Oh, yeah.
And there was a plethora of players that went on and played, internationally. And not many Americans played in the NHL. There's a few, but we'll talk about that and a few others in a minute down the road. But that's why I wanted to throw at about any Bronco experiences or anything you wanted to bring up. That's why I appreciate you talking about that. So let's move on.
Right.
I know you ended up at North Dakota, but how did you end up there? Because didn't you play a little bit in the USHL with the Bobcats, and then you went to North Dakota? Tell me this background behind that. How you ended up playing at North Dakota?
Well, it's quite an interesting journey for sure.
Well, let's hear it.
When I left high school, I took a year off, most of a year. I went to California, hung out, got a little lonesome. Christmas time, I said, I got to come home. So I left LA on a bus and came back to the Falls, put my equipment on again and practiced a little bit with Larry and the Bronco team. And then jumped in a car with a guy named Marsh Cheetah from St. Paul and jumped in the car with Marsh, and we went to Boston to try out with the U.S. national team. He was probably 10 years older than me. I was a punk. I was 18. I ended up going to Boston. I didn't bring my gear because I didn't have gear. I practiced stuff with Larry, but he gave me gear, but he said I couldn't take it with him because he had to keep it with the Bronco program. So I went out there thinking I was rather naive. I thought for sure that they would know who I was because I just won a state championship in International Falls. So I get there, and of course, they didn't get me any equipment, but I'm stuck in a hotel with Jackie Poole, actually. Jackie was a War Road guy, and he was another guy much older than I was, came out of War Road. So I was rooming with Jackie. So they made the team. The guy I drove out with made the team, Jackie Poole. I'm sitting in this hotel thinking, how the hell am I going to get back to International Falls? I'm going to have to hitchhike out of Boston. I wasn't even sure how to get out of Boston, for crying out loud, let alone hitchhiking and getting on the interstate. Guess who I gets a call from? I get a call by who owns the Boston Bruins and the Boston Celtics. His name was Walter Brown. Walter is a legend in amateur hockey and, of course, hockey in itself. I had seen him at one of the practices when I was watching. He was near enough with me to talk to me about why was I there, and I told him the story. He said, "Really, they don't have any equipment for you?" I said, "No." He said, do you mind? I'm going to give you a ride back. I said, well, I'll be happy to join you. So I got into his limo. He had a limo and a driver, and we took off, and I thought he was going to drop me off downtown Boston. Instead of that, he took me to the Boston Garden.
Okay.
And we walked in together, and I'm thinking, I'm going to the Boston Garden? He's bringing me in. And the old Swampers, and we're saying, "Hi, Mr. Brown, how are you, Mr. Brown?" And he's going, "Hi, Mike. Hi, John. Good to see you." And we go in, he takes me into the locker room in Boston. He's trying to get some equipment for me. The trainer was there and he's looked around. He said, God, Mr. Brown, this is the goaltender stuff that's here, but those are your guys playing pro hockey in the NHL. So anyway, long story short, I'm back to sitting in the hotel. I get a call. It's Walter Brown. He said, I've got a cab coming over to pick you up and bringing you back to the garden. So I go to the garden. I go up to his room, his office, I should say. And the two Patricks are there, which are famous, legendary coaches.
Yep.
The two Patricks and Mr. Brown. He has me sit down near him and he talks to me a little bit. He says, there's something against the wall over there for you. It was a pair of Kineski goal pads, brand new.
Wow.
Wrapped in paper with a handle, a nice wooden handle at the top that you could carry the Kineskis on. He said, I want you to take those pads back home with you and develop them, soften them up, and use them. I said, well, thank you, Mr. Brown. And now I'm saying to myself, how the hell am I going to hitchhike with the pads, those goal pads, and my suitcase? This is a true story now. He reaches across his desk and he slides an envelope over to me.
Oh boy.
No kidding. He said, open it. I opened it up and it was a one-way flight to Green Bay, Wisconsin. He said, I spoke to John Mayasich and Dick Doherty, and they would like you to come and play with the Bobcats in Green Bay. I said, you're kidding. So I loaded up my pads and my suitcase, and I flew for the first time in my life. I was scared shitless. And I get in the thing and land in Green Bay, and sure, Dick Doherty and John Mayasich are there to greet me. And that's a story that I love to share. It was amazing.
Let's just say this. I think the hockey gods were on your side.
Definitely. I was a very lucky camper. A very lucky camper. So anyway, I played in Green Bay when I was 18, just out of high school. I come back. I didn't play a lot. Jimmy Matson was their goaltender. So I played maybe 2 or 3 games the last month of the season or so. Came back to the Falls, and some of the teams that had recruited me after high school were not interested any longer because I just left. And long story short, Mariucci calls me and he says, look, I want you to take the ACT test again. I said, fine. So anyway, long story short, I go to Minnesota, I take another ACT test, but I didn't predict. My high school class was my place in my high school class was very small. I was like the 40th percentile. And it wasn't because I wasn't smart enough. It was because I lived with my grandparents and they didn't care and I didn't care. I was in high school. So long story short, I end up with taking the ACT, but not predicting yet. But I was scoring really high, but my high school class was so low, my placement, that I had to get really high, very high ACT test. I was getting ACT tests were much higher than kids coming out of high school going to Minnesota, the regular people, just students. I was scoring high. So they talked me into going to Minnesota and playing, or not playing, but going to school. And then if I did well in school, they were going to give me a scholarship when I was a sophomore. I'm at Minnesota the first quarter. I go out and I practice with the freshman team because they couldn't play that freshman. I went out with the freshman team and practiced twice, and I got a call from Glenn Reed, who was the assistant athletic director. And he calls me into the office. He says, Lefty, he didn't call me Lefty, he called me Mike. He said, Mike, you can't practice either. You just have to go to school, get your grades, and then we're going to put you and give you a full ride. But you got to do it. This year, you just got to go focus on academics. I said, oh, really? And then I said, I found out that I could, the St. Paul Steers, which was in the USHL, were interested in me, maybe playing with them that winter. And I went to Mr. Reed again. He says, you can't even do that. Can't do anything. Just got to sit. So anyway, I get my grades, and my grade average was 3.83.
What?
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. I had 3 A's and a B plus. So I called Huffer. He was in Duluth. I said, "You think Mr. Romano might be interested in me playing there?" He said, "Let me look into it." And he calls me back. He said, "Yeah, he'd be interested." He said, "He wants to know if you really have a 3.83." I said, "Yeah, I've got my grades. Go check it out." So anyway, I end up in Duluth on a weekend. I hadn't signed. This is over Christmas. I'm sitting there on a weekend. I'm sitting with Huffer. Huffer's got his own apartment. He's eating steak. He's got his girlfriend. I'm sitting there thinking, God, I'm liking this. I'm gonna go to Duluth. This is a pretty good deal. By the way, Huffer smoked and so did I. So we had ashtrays and everything. We were 18, 19-year-olds. So long story. This is a fascinating thing though about North Dakota. I had to get a bus back to the falls from Duluth on Sunday. That weekend, the two games I watched UMD play was against North Dakota.
Okay.
So on Sunday, I get on the bus to go back to International Falls, and who's on the bus? Bill Selman, the assistant coach for North Dakota. Now they had been recruiting me. So Bill says to me, he says, Lefty, what are you doing on this bus? I said, well, I just watched you guys play this weekend. He said, you did? I said, yeah, I'm going to UMD next after the Christmas. He said, what do you mean? I thought you were in Minnesota. I said, well, I was. He said, yeah, but you didn't predict to qualify. I said, yeah, but I got a 3.83. He said, you got a 3.83 at Minnesota? I said, first quarter? I said, yeah. He says, well, you'll predict for sure. So he says, don't do anything. I'm bringing Bobby Peters back up during Christmas. We'll get together and we'll talk. So that's the story. So instead of going to UMD over the Christmas holidays, which would have been January 2nd or 3rd, I got another month off because they were on semesters, and that's good too. And I really did want to go to North Dakota because they had such a legacy of hockey, And I said, that's the place I need to go. So that's the story, and that's how I'm going to stick with it. That's how I ended up in North Dakota.
That's an amazing story because I had no idea. I had no idea how you
Those are
got there.
some things I didn't think you knew about.
Well, that's exactly why we're doing this. Tell the history behind, Lefty
Mhm.
Curran and just how that
Yeah.
path
So
ended up
it
there.
was a great experience. And I go to North Dakota. They had a goaltender. So that second semester, and then the next year, they redshirted me for that last half of the second year. Okay. I
Okay.
was eligible, but the other guy was a senior and he was a good goaltender. So then the following year, by the way, when I got to North Dakota, by the way, they stuck me in in the North Stadium, it was called. This is where we stayed. Donnie Ross was there. And guess who I roomed with? Bob Lillo and Larry Skyam. I'm going to bring it back to you guys. No
Yep.
kidding. So anyway, that's the way it got going in North Dakota.
It's just pretty amazing. So before we talk about UND, I know a plethora of stuff to talk about there, but before I do that, you mentioned a couple names. You mentioned Mariucci, and then you mentioned Masich, and I do want you to discuss your time with him because I know you went back to the Bobcats a little later too. But can you discuss this? It's a different picture I got of him, but I kind of like this one because it's with his son. Can you talk
Yeah.
about playing for this guy? I mean, he was a player coach, wasn't he, when he was at the Bobcats?
He was a general manager, coach. He was everything. And when I got there in 62 or 63, he was probably, let's see, he was a 51 high school graduate. So this would be 62, 11 years later. He was probably in his late 20s then when I met John. And he was still playing some pretty good hockey. And then he coached our 69 World Championship team and played in 69. This is right after the first year that I went to Green Bay after getting out of Grand Forks. I went and taught school in Green Bay. And yeah, John was everything. He was very personable. He was very successful. He was probably the best American, without a doubt. He was very capable of playing with the 6-team NHL back then in the 50s when he got out of college. There was no doubt he would have played and been probably a star. He was really special. You know, just 3 months ago or a couple months back, John showed up at the induction, and I go to most of the inductions for the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And he came 3 days before. He called me and said, "Lefty, are you going to go to this?" And I said, "Yes, I'm going to go." And he said, "Have you talked to Jack McCartan? Have you talked him into going?" I said, "I can't get Jack to come, but I'm coming, and I'd love to see you." So we chatted for probably half hour, and he told me, he said, "Did you know that I played goal too, Lefty?" And I said, "What?" It's
Yeah.
a little bit like you're discovering about me something. He said, "Did you know I played goal?" And I said, "Bullshit.
Yeah.
You didn't play goal, John." He said, "Oh yeah." He says, "I think I've got a photo or two that shows that." Um, Listen, when Mike and Danny come over to the hall, if I can find a photo of it, I'll bring it and give it to you. I said, "You have a photo of you playing goal?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Would you get one for Jack McCartan too?" Because Jack he looked up at John like crazy. So we're at the induction before the induction, we're out in the corridor at the Wilds place, the XL. And I look off to my right, and in a little chair over there and table sitting there is John, but he's not mingling with anybody. He's 91 years old, probably didn't want to get into all of that.
Yeah.
So
Certainly.
I walked over to him and sit down with him. Say, "Mace, I'm glad you made it. I see you got your sons here." It was Danny and Mike. "Great, good to see you guys." I knew those kids. Those kids are 60 now, by the way. So anyway, give you some perspective. So Mike hands me a hard-covered envelope, big one. I said, "There's going to be a photo in there of him playing goal." I know. So I pull it out, and sure enough, there's two of them there, one for Jack McCartan and one for me. There's a photo of the team, USA, Cortina, the group from Cortina, 56 had just won silver, and they were touring Europe. They were playing in Sweden. Ikola gets hurt. Middle of the game against the Swedes. They didn't have a backup goaltender. The Swedes were trying to hustle up a goaltender to finish for the U.S. Mesic says, "I'll play."
Oh, B.
Halfway through the second period, he finishes the game, and there's a photo of the guys in the locker room. So it wasn't what you call a formal photo, team photo. It was just a bunch of guys, maybe as many as 12. And in the middle of them standing there is Mesic with the pads on, with Ikola's pads on. He said, "Lefty, I only gave up 2 goals and we won."
No way.
Now, this is a true story. I've got the photo. I'll send you a copy of the photo so you'll get it
That's
someday.
amazing.
I'm going to give you that.
That'll look
Isn't
good
this
on my, if I can get a copy of that, I'll put him right next to Sachuk.
honestly,
That's amazing.
I got the photo right up here. I should get it for you right now. I'll put it in front of you, put it there. But I'll get it for you. So anyway, this is not the end of this story now. So all these dignitaries are coming over to see John. The whole crowd's over there. First of all, I'm sitting there, and Gary, the guy who runs the NHL, Gary Bettman comes over, right? He wants to meet John. So he shakes hands with John, and a few words between him and Bettman. And next thing you know, Lou Lamoriello comes over. He wants to meet him now. Lou, of course, everybody kind of knows his career.
Yep.
Quite impressive. So Lou's over there talking to him. And then he leaves. And we're still sitting there now. Danny, Mike, John, myself. Next thing you know, we get Leopold and Garrett, the GM and the owner for the Wild. They got to meet John, right? So they come over and they're back and forth. The two of them are standing up. John's still sitting to my left. I'm sitting here. Sure enough, they're back and forth, and then they're going to leave. And I take my photo out of the hard copy, and I reach it up to to Leopold and Guerin. And I said, "Here, take a look at this." And they're sitting there looking like, USA Hockey, when was this? I said, "Well, this was the Cortina team, 1956. Oh, okay. I said, "Who's the guy in the middle there? The goal pads on." He said, "I don't know. Lefty? Who is he?" I said, and I laughed, reached out to my left and pointed at John. I said, "It's him." They go, "What?" I said, "It's him." So they were flabbergasted. And then he finally said, "You've got to be kidding me." And then before they left, I said, "You guys are lucky that he wasn't playing now when he was 18, because his agent would be asking for an awful lot of money." I said, you'd be signing the best center iceman in American hockey, the best defenseman in American hockey, and you could have even used the goaltender once in a while if you needed to. They laughed. Huh?
That's amazing,
That
Lefty,
just
because I've
happened to
never
me.
heard of it. And I do a lot of due diligence, and I didn't realize that because I have to see that picture someday because that's a cherished picture there. Amazing. That's amazing. So, but then, you know what? It all goes back to before I go on to talk about UND a little more detail, but that all goes back to going back to Northern hockey.
Yeah,
Mariucci, Masic, yourself, just a
yeah,
plethora of other players back in the day from up north, and
absolutely.
how dominant that area was back in the day. It's so many good hockey players. And
Yeah.
playing for Minnesota and playing with them, one of the best of all time in year one of them. So it's pretty crazy. That story is like, I'll remember that one. And I don't think anybody will ever like, what? Because that's the first thing I thought. What? I'm thinking of that, man. You got to be kidding me. But that just shows what type of an athlete that guy was.
I'm going to reach just, if I just get out of this chair for a moment.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm going to bring you the photo.
Sure. I mean, I want to see this. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, here we go.
How about that, folks? We're going to see something that I don't think too many people know.
All right, here we come.
Okay.
All right, here I come.
Up there?
No.
No.
No. Leopold and Garrett still can't get over this. I'm sure they're still thinking about this. Here it is right here.
Okay, hold on. You can tell. I mean, yeah.
That's John.
I mean, you see it in the face. I know exactly. Well,
he's in the middle. He just finished the game as a goaltender.
That's crazy. Wow.
Huh?
That there is a picture that, oh my.
I'll get another photo from another one. I'll get you one. As a goaltender.
That'll be appreciated.
Okay, I got to show you one more thing. You'll like this.
Sure.
This is outdoors with my grandson in an outdoor rink. And I was doing this for a whole bunch of kids, and I was playing a little goal with them. I promised them they couldn't shoot high, though.
There you go. That's a good one, too.
Okay, buddy. All right, I'll let you go.
Hey, thanks for sharing that, because people look back at that. They'll pause that when we do this video and I put it out there, and they'll see, and they'll double take, because you could tell right away. I mean, you know exactly who it is looking at that picture, but that's a true story. That's hockey lore right there.
Yeah, there
hockey
you go.
Lore.
Yeah, make a note on it. Tell him he only gave up 2 and they still won.
That's even more amazing. So let's talk about them UND. I don't have any UND pictures. I apologize for that, because I couldn't find any. But let's talk about some of those players and the teams he played for with. Because on that note, I mean, some of these guys on UND when you were there, and I still call them the Sioux. I mean, they'll always be the Sioux.
No, we can use the name. You're good with that here.
Yeah, because when you played, they were called the Sioux. Yeah, so back when you were on those teams, I mean, there was guys like Gino was there, Gino Gasparini, Terry Abram played there, Dennis Hextall, John Marks. I mean, and the list goes on. Then I mentioned the Roseau guys yet, Olivin, Little, and whoever it may else have the roster.
Rig from Roseau. There was a Rig from Roseau.
Yeah, that's right, Rig too. I mean,
Paul Rig, yeah.
Some pretty amazing players you played with. But I want to pull up something here, and I want to show this so people. There's a game, and I mentioned it briefly in the intro. Let's see if I got this here. Right here.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to talk about this game in particular, because you didn't win a championship. You were in a couple NCAA tournaments, but look at this. And look at the 2 goaltenders. On the left, Mike Lefty Curran. On the right, we have Ken Dryden, a Hall of Famer. You had 42 shots, only let in 1. But that's son of a gun, Kenny Dryden. He didn't let in any, and you lost 1-0.
Yeah, they win the game, and they go on to win the final. They ended up beating BU for the championship. That was the semifinal game on a Thursday, and I can still remember the game very clearly. And it was I know he was probably thinking down at my end of the ice, because I was thinking down the ice and watching him too, as goaltenders can do. And it was an exciting game. They scored their goal coming out of the penalty box. If I remember, in fact, I was trying to referee a little bit. I wasn't paying attention. It was probably about a 35, 40-foot shot. And the guy's name was Stanowski. He was one of their very good defensemen. And it was, the team that I played with that year, the year before we won the league, and that year we nearly did. I think we finished second or third. And I didn't realize it at the time, Sid, but when I played goal at North Dakota, those 2 years, not so much my sophomore year when Hextall and Casey and those guys were there. It was kind of a wide open sort of game then. And I was just developing and starting to play some decent hockey, but not my sophomore year. But anyway, back to my senior years, and that was our junior years when we played that game in Syracuse. We had a real stingy team. We were hard to play against. We were fast, and we were very, very tenacious. And I didn't realize until after I played the game in the 70s when I retired just how fortunate I was as a goalie to have played for those North Dakota teams then, because they had a lot to do with my goaltending. They were really good that way, and that was our focus. And any goaltender would like to play with a team like that, because we didn't worry so much about scoring as we did about taking care of our own end of the ice. Yeah.
Well, I saw one of the players. I think one of the players he played with coached me in Bantams, if I remember right. Mike Baumgartner was on one of those teams, wasn't he?
Well, he came about a year or two later. I
Okay, I
was a
wasn't quite
60.
sure.
I got out in 68, and I think Mike probably showed up in 70, 71. You
Yeah,
know,
I think you're right on that. He
yeah.
was a few years
I don't
later,
even
but
think he played in 69, the first year that I had left.
yeah, by God, yeah.
They had Marks and Abrams the
Yes.
year after. They were both with me at my senior year, those two. And Abe's was with us my sophomore or my junior and senior year. He was a year behind us. Yeah, we had some nice players. I
What
mean,
type of player can you tell me this? I know he went on to be synonymous with UND Sioux hockey. Was Gino? What type of player was Gino like?
Gino was a center iceman, um, had skill, uh, played as a sophomore, junior, and senior, 3 years. It was our captain, actually, our senior year. Gino was our captain. Uh,
Okay.
he was he was a good little hockey player. He could play. He wasn't Huffer, or he wasn't a superstar by any means, but he was out there and he's doing his job like he should. He actually lost his job. He actually lost his job about halfway through the season, our senior year. A guy by the name of Dave Hudson, who went on to play in the NHL, took Gino's spot a little bit. Yeah, so the last half of his senior year was not a happy time for Gino. Uh, I didn't, not, we didn't think of those things. I'm sure he did, but we didn't think about him so much as you just go on to play the game. No, Gino was a nice player, and I wasn't surprised that he was a very successful coach, because
Well,
he watched he was well disciplined. He wasn't out screwing around like a lot of the guys, like myself and many others. He was in the dormitory writing. You're smart.
well, but I didn't want to I had to talk about those games there at the Sioux and when you played against Dryden, because that was
Right.
some battles. And let's talk
Yeah.
about some of the battles now. We'll go from UND because we're getting along in the end here, and we can talk
Well,
all day
it was
hockey. But let's
it
keep.
was Esposito, that was at Tech at the time too.
I was going to bring up another lefty, right? Another lefty. He won a national title there at Tech,
Absolutely.
didn't he?
So he was a sophomore and they won it. And then
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know this, but he shared the goal with a guy by the name of Best, Best.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ricky Best and Tony Esposito shared the job for 3 straight years at Tech. So they talk about hockey today, and you got to have all of this hockey to be better, to be successful. And to a certain extent, that might be true. But I will tell you this: if you're good, they'll find you. and
100%.
Esposito got himself about 12 or 13 games a season. A season.
And
Didn't
where you ended up.
he probably didn't like sharing that job with Best.
Nope.
But at the end of the day, he was ready anyway because he was good. He was
At the end of the day, who
yeah,
remembers Best? I don't.
yeah.
Who
And
remembers
Ricky Betts,
you?
nobody. He just went back to Canada.
Yeah.
So the two of them played
So,
together, and Esposito. Well, we probably played against one another at least 6 times over the
I
seasons.
got my Blackhawks jersey over there right next to the Sioux one, as you can see. So
Mm-hmm.
a couple logos there,
Yeah, he
Look
could
at Tony
play.
O.
Tony O
I'm
could
throw that
play.
out.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So let's move on a little bit from there because we could talk a little bit, about keep continuing about the UND days because there was quite some players there and some Rosa players, of course. But you move on,
So do you want
and
more about Dryden? There's a couple things
yeah,
I wanted to
what I
mention about.
wanted to do is let's pull up something here. I'm gonna show up on a picture
Okay,
here before we forget, right here,
okay.
because this all goes into the World International Play and USA Hockey. So
Yeah, oh yeah, okay.
this one
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
talk about that a little bit. Look
yeah.
how
Well,
tall he is compared to you.
he's this was in Stockholm, Sweden in '69. This is when John was our coach, Mesic. And this is an interesting story. The year before this, the second time, Dryden and I played against one another in Duluth for the national championship semifinal game again. And we play Cornell and we win 3-1. And then we play Denver for the championship and lose. After that's over, the next year, Dryden and Cornell goes to the final again, and they play Denver and lose. And the Canadian staff brought him directly from Colorado Springs to Stockholm to play a game or 2 or 3 with Canada. This was at the end of a 10-game tournament. This would probably be somewhere around the 7th or 8th game of the tournament. And Dryden's in the other end. And I'm thinking, here we go again. Face to face. Let's go do her again here. And we played the game. And at the end of this game, we were leaving the ice and we were just talking. And somebody asked for a photo and they gave us a photo. So anyway, the final was 1-0 again. 1-0 Canada. 1-0. And I'm thinking, what the hell? I've given up 3 and he's given up 3, but he's won 2. We've won 1. So I invited him up to my room and we were sitting in the room chatting and I brought it up to him. I said, Kenny, 3 goals for you and 3 for me. 3 games. GAA is pretty good. 1 per game, but you guys win 2. We win 1. You're the better man.
Yeah.
And then I spent some time with him later during our careers, and up in Dryden, Ontario, a good friend of mine was up there, and they were celebrating their 50th of Dryden, Ontario, and they brought Kenny in to speak. So, and then we chatted again then. He was a real good gentleman, a very nice guy. I always respected the heck out of him.
Yeah, I'd be remiss because that's why I became a Canadians fan. That's why I'm a big Habs fan growing up as a young kid in the '70s, watching them in their heyday was because of
Right.
Kenny Dryden.
Yeah.
And I became a goaltender. I like to say I became a goaltender because of you, but I had to turn from left-handed to
Oh,
right-handed,
no.
so I had to find a right-handed goalie
Yeah.
follow. So
There you
Dryden
go.
was my guy.
There you
Dryden
go.
was my guy.
Right.
So you had the battles against Kenny. Now let's talk about that you showed that international picture, but I want to bring up here. Let's see. I got to show this picture here, Lefty, because I love that it's such a '70s picture because of the.
Yeah.
How about the stash? Look at that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That was in 76. That was Canada, the one down below. That was the initial, the first year of what they call World Cup. It was in Canada. That was the first time that that each country, the 6 countries, the major 6 countries of the world, were allowed to bring professionals.
Okay.
It was called the Canada Cup 1976. Yeah, there were some northern Minnesota boys on that team, Sid. That photo there below. We had Hank Slavin there. I think we had Sergeant. Gosh, I think there was maybe one or two other kids from up north that were on
I
that
didn't look
team.
at the I should look at the rosters
Yeah,
back because I did a lot
the
of.
one on top was a photo taken when I was actually with the U.S. club in '71 when we played, and Donnie Ross played with our club that year in '71. Yeah.
Okay. How about this one here? Which one was this from? Or your jersey here? Where this is the World
That
Championships
would
here?
that would have been the same thing, Canada Cup. That
Okay.
our uniforms were different for the first time, so they were fooling around with different things then. So that uniform, that's another photo. That's the other photo that you're looking at above that is that was, I think, for sure in '76 as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So can we talk about some of those teams? First of all, let's talk about, you guys struggled and was it 69 or whatever? I'm going back to some of these the national teams um, before you ended up playing in the Olympics. But going back to the 70-71 roster, wasn't that what was your record that year when you played nationally? That wasn't
You mean in the
we
World
had a
Tournament?
couple.
It was a
Yeah, yeah,
disaster.
yeah.
Yeah, we I think we won one and tied one maybe and lost 8.
That's
Uh,
what I was going to get at. You
I,
guys
I
didn't have
didn't play. I didn't play. I'm not. I'm not trying to say that. I mean, I wish I could have played better. The problem. I had a problem that year. I hurt my knee real bad just before we embarked for Europe. I was on crutches when we went over. Um, my battery mate, my goaltending mate, was a very good goaltender, Carl Wetzel.
yeah, I was just going to say
Yeah,
West. Yeah.
Carl and I played the whole year together with that '71 club. We traveled. Our record was fairly good, I think. Anyway, in the World Tournament, Nagy was when they put me on the ice. The first game against Sweden, which was early in the tournament, I think it was maybe the opening game of the tournament, and I wasn't. I was hurting. My knee was not good, and so Nagy um, would big needles in the knee to try and
Number up a little bit.
take care of the pain and try and forget that you're not working very well with a knee, and so we almost beat Sweden. It was 4-3, and I played poorly. Uh, Coach might not have thought that. He probably thought I was maybe playing pretty good, but I knew that I wasn't playing like I should be. So anyway, we play Finland, and again, it's the whole thing with the shots, 2 different shots, big ones too, into the knee. Fire up, and I play Finland, and Finland beats us like 7-2. And after the game in '72, after that game in '71, I told Nagy, I said, you're gonna have to go talk to Williamson because I'm not going to play any longer. I'm not helping the club, and that became a problem between Murray and I. afterwards. He thought I should be playing hurt, and he didn't understand that as a goaltender, you're not helping your team if you can't play as well as you're supposed to play. So basically, I just said, no, I'm not going on, Murray. You can fly me home or do whatever you like. And of course, he didn't. He said, no, you're going to stay here. You're going to and I'm not happy with you. And I said, fine. So anyway, a goaltender from Notre Dame was brought in to play. His name was Tomasoni, kid from Chisholm, played at Notre Dame. So they did bring him along with the two of us when we left Europe, because they weren't going to be sure about me. So he was a young Curran. I think he was still a junior at Notre Dame at the time too. Nice young man. I've seen him since.
Another name synonymous with hockey. I think he coached for some years too, didn't he? Was that Ron Tomasoni? Was his name? Or?
Well, that would be a different one, I think.
Last name though.
Yeah. No, he his brother, of course, was the senator who we lost.
Oh, okay.
Dave Tomasoni. David Tomasoni. We lost him 2 or 3 years ago. He was the chairman of our board up at Evelyn. Wonderful man.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. And he played at Denver, and that would be Dick's younger brother.
Okay. Yeah. I see he was on there for 3 games. Dick was on there for three games. So I want to throw some names. I'm looking at these roster here right now from the this is from 70, 71, and I got 77, 71, 72 pulled up. But I look at some of these names. I mean, you mentioned Don Ross, but Gary Gambucci, Keith Christensen, you had Craig Patrick, Boucher, Tim Sheehy. I mean, the names of these names.
We had a great team. We had a nice team.
Pat Westrom, Westrom. Kirby Brooks, I guess, was there for trial for a little while. And there's a name that, a lot of people don't know this name. I know this name because I actually played old timers with him in West St. Paul. Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown could play. He could play when I was playing old timers with him.
Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry High School. Patrick Henry. Yeah, he could play.
We play old timers and he's old timers in West St. Paul, and the guy's like doing old dilly dally with the puck. I'm like, Jesus, I would hate to see Charlie back in the heyday when he was young.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, I got to get a new cap on here just for.
What are we switching to now?
Let's try this one for a while here.
All right, we're going to talk about that next here, but so that's very appropriate. You should put that one on. But I just I'm looking at those names and the teams that you played with. There's some pretty amazing hockey names, and
we had a nice team. Bruce Liuta, Jim McElmurray, Donnie Rossler. We had good defensemen. George Connick. I mean, that 71 team, healthy ways, could play with that 72 club that went to the Olympics. Actually, that was a total revamping of the lineup, that 72 club that we had that won silver. That was a bunch of young kids. That 72 thing was a total miracle. You talk about 80 and 60, that 72 team. I mean, we had guys 16. We had a 16-year-old. We had 2 or 3 19-year-olds. Think about that. Winning silver.
Yeah, and that's the story we're going to talk about here in a moment because, because it was over in Sapporo.
Yeah.
Unlike the 80 and the 60 were in the States, right? It wasn't getting not as much attention, because it was overseas.
Right.
And I look at the squad that you had there in the Olympic team. You had Charlie was on there, Hopper was on there. You had Boucher, Robbie Fatorik, Tim Sheehy, Craig Sarner. Did some hockey games with him. Ron Nazen, Mark Howell, then in your staff. Williamson, and I want to throw something up because you're talking about when you're injured in that, and I want to put up a little quick video of you talking about. Because Don Ross mentioned his name to me. I want to throw this video up and you were discussing Doc. So I'm just going to throw this video for a quick second here, please.
Okay.
Never forgotten it.
The Miracle on Ice may be his greatest moment, but those who know Doc say he's at his best when he returns to his homeland.
Murray would have him discuss with us the intrigue and the danger of Eastern Europe. It was like a spy novel. I mean, Nagy would talk to us. I don't know if he spoke to us because Murray had him speak to us to scare us, or if Nagy felt that way genuinely, having come from behind the Iron Curtain. Nagy would tell us stories about what we could and couldn't do while we were there. Jim, it went on and on. By the time he was done, I was even frightened a little bit, and I was a little bit older.
I always said Nagy was not only our team doctor, but he was a friend, and he was a hockey player himself, but he was also our tour guide, and he was our interpreter, and our historian, as we would go around these.
So,
Yeah.
I need to throw that up. Were you able to listen to that? Could you hear it on your side?
No, I didn't hear it. That was there was no sound, but that's okay. I mean, I remember that experience. We were honoring Doc there, and God, there were a lot of American hockey people who were there at that dinner. And
I know you were talking a little bit younger a few years ago there.
Well, that was probably back in the early '90s, probably.
Yeah, I think it was when I pulled that video up. And I'm sorry, I thought the song was working. I apologize, it didn't work about that. But
that's all right.
Yeah, because Don Ross mentioned him to me, and he said the guy was so intelligent he could speak I don't know how many languages.
Yeah, and in that that time where I had an opportunity to say some nice things about Doc, my story was I was always fascinated by how he. I understood Eastern Europe, and I was a little older than some of the younger guys, and he reminded us of watching our P's and Q's when we were traveling in Europe, especially behind the Iron Curtain. And I mean, it was almost like a lecture. He'd sit down, all of us were there. He'd go through everything. Careful about this. Don't be trading money. Don't be doing this with American dollars. They'll throw you in prison. Da 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 da. And you know, there were some problems with some people. George Connick got thrown in jail in Romania.
Really?
Yeah, trading money.
Oh, so there was no water shenanigans.
In the communist countries, they did not. The government didn't appreciate that kind of stuff. Stay away from all that. So yeah, that was Doc. By the way, I got another hat on. This is Sapporo.
Well, that's leading right into what we're going to talk about. So
yeah,
I want to pull up another thing for you. I want to show this so people can see that. It may be difficult because it's smaller print, but let's look at this box score right here, because this is, and I'm going to have another video. Hopefully you can hear it, but let's show the box score.
Well, I see a lot of
box score.
Could have been Japan. It looks like Japanese stuff to me.
It is. As a matter of fact, this is a crucial game. On that lower right-hand corner, if you see the first two periods for Czech, the goalie had 9 saves. He got yanked. Third period, he had 9 saves. So they had 18 shots or 18 saves.
Yeah.
Because this is goaltender saves. Then below, Team USA, number 30, a.k.a. Lefty Curran, 51 saves.
Yeah.
51 to 18. So that was a crucial game. You pretty much stood on your head. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it was one of those games where they scored the first goal of that game, by the way, early in the first period, and all of a sudden, I could see that things were going to change. We started scoring some goals, and I thought, hell, we might win this game. Because I tell you, I got spanked a lot in previous world tournaments, a lot. And I'm thinking, geez, this is starting to look like something special. And sure enough, by the third period, they couldn't, I wasn't going to let them score. I just knew that I didn't have to give up a goal. I don't care how many shots each. I think I was levitating at times. I think I was in the air.
Well,
I think
Lefty,
I think I was in the air levitating from time to time. It was like
let me on
it
that
was,
note,
it
let
was
me show
magic.
another. Let me show.
It was great.
Let me show another video. Hopefully you can hear this because I can hear it on my end. So, but this is a minute and 20 seconds here of them talking about that, and I think there's maybe even a little clip or two within there. We'll see. But sit
Yeah.
back and hopefully you can hear it.
Sure.
But I know it's going to come through. So I got to show this because this is worth. Okay.
Go ahead.
Delivering that message in the pre-Olympic tournament set the tone for the game, but that wasn't the only wrinkle in the game plan. USA goalie Mike Lefty Curran, a veteran of many international games, knew what he had to do next.
Lefty's changed. I said, Lefty, what are you doing? Because I go down in on Lefty in a 2-on-1 like, and I look over here, and then I could shoot short side and score on him, like at half the net. I said, what are you doing, Lefty? He says, well, Rob, he says, trust me. He says, the European players, they don't shoot, they pass. So I'm anticipating the pass, getting used to playing against European hockey players. I said, you sure? He says, yeah, I'm sure. I said, well, I hope so. I said, because this is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Look at that save, flying through the air.
His performance was off the charts.
Mike Curran, who 3 weeks ago was in Green Bay playing in the Senior Amateur League. Watch these saves.
Just spectacular save after spectacular save.
And there is one of the 51 saves made by Curran.
Yeah, Lefty stood and said,
True to form, they would make that pass, and he'd be making these big, huge saves and unconscious saves and great saves, and that experience was the reason why we were able to win.
With Curran providing the spark, the United States went on the offensive. The Americans scored 5 goals, chasing.
I don't know if you were able to hear that, Lefty.
No, I wasn't, but that's okay. I've heard those. I have them myself. A lot of that stuff. That was nice of you to even show it. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully the people that are watching this when I show the replay, because it talked Robbie Ftorek talking about. I want you to talk about this because Robbie Ftorek says, I came in on Lefty, and normally Lefty, what's going on? You changed.
Yeah.
Can you discuss that? Talking about how you changed your game.
Here's the deal. I joined the team 2 weeks before we went over.
You're playing for the Bobcats.
I was with the Bobcats, and I was asked to join the team. And of course, Robbie was 19 years old then, and tenacious little bugger too. Boy, he was a tough little guy. And so anyway, I joined the team, and of course, I'm training with the team for probably 2 weeks before we even go over there to Sapporo, to Japan. And I think we were in Denver at the time. That's where we trained for a couple weeks before we flew over to Japan. And I used to screw around during the practices, and I used to sit back in the net, and just the opposite of what I would normally do. And the reason why I was doing that was because I knew that that's what I was going to deal with when I played the Europeans. Because that's the way they play. They don't shoot the puck.
Pass.
They want to turn you inside out and make every play a wonderful, wonderful goal. And I realized all of that. So what I did is I used to practice about put myself on that ice sheet playing the Euros instead of getting out and breaking, taking angles away and getting out and taking room away from the shooters that you did in North America. Now, Robbie, he didn't understand that. In fact, he was frustrated by it. And that's when he talked to me about it. He says, what's going on? He said, he had to go down the other end and shoot against the other guy to practice his slap shots and the things that he did when he was going to play, right? Little Robbie. And I tried to explain to him that I was just preparing for the tournament because at the end of the day, you're going to have to be between the posts, between the pipes, and make the saves. Yeah. And then I think he went on to say that he watched me doing that and said, yeah, I knew what he meant by it all. I think that's what you were talking about.
Exactly. And the one thing was when he was talking about it and you mentioned before, I went and showed the video, you said about levitating. You thought you
Yeah,
were levitating?
yeah.
Well, they showed that one save across, and they were talking about because you like were diving in the air, and like that
Well,
was about as close
I was
as
levitating.
you were. You were. So,
That was near
but,
the end of the game.
but amazing stuff. And, in order for things to happen, you had to have some other teams win and lose, and then that's
Hmm.
what happened. And lo and behold, long story short,
Yes.
silver medal.
Yeah.
And that's a
It was an
story I think
amazing
needs.
story.
I mean,
I
not
couldn't believe
enough
it. It was
people know
fairy tale.
about it.
It was fairy tale stuff.
And
I mean,
you,
I looked at these young kids I played with, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm glad that they were naive when they came over here to play in this thing, because naivete was one of our strong suits, because we had these youngsters that really didn't know the depth of what they were getting into, and sure enough, that helped, because these young guys in the team, they were out there thinking that they can win. They could win every game. I
it's
was
only
playing.
better, right?
I was playing to play as though I wasn't. I didn't want to be embarrassed again. I went over there. I was frightened when I went over there, Sid. I mean, I thought, what am I getting myself into here? I mean, I had 3 or 4 international experiences, or 5, and I knew what we were getting into. And I thought, they're bringing me in here to play. They're not bringing me in to watch. And I'm
Yep.
thinking, what the hell? What am I getting myself into here? I know it's the Olympics and it's a wonderful opportunity, but I'm thinking, God, I just hope you can do well and not, uh, be a failure. Uh, so for me, it was, I think, a lot of inner pressure. But with these young guys on our team, I could see them throwing snowballs, jumping off of roofs into snow drifts. I mean,
Acting like
that's
kids.
what they were doing. They were having a ball, these kids. I mean, and then everything fell into place. It was unbelievable. We win that
Yeah.
game against Poland. By the way, the Polish game, I stopped two penalty shots in a row, against the Polacks.
Really?
Yeah,
I
against
didn't. I didn't
Poles. Yeah,
have
yeah.
crazy pull up.
There's a minute and a half left in the game, and we're winning 5-1. And this Canadian referee calls a penalty shot. It was kind of a cheap penalty shot too, but why he was even calling it, I don't know. But anyway, so the pole, he lines up at center ice, and I get ready for him, and the whistle blows, and I left the crease just a little bit, and he comes in on me, and he's trying to he's gonna deke me. I forget right or left, and I made the save, and the Canadian referee goes, "Got to do it again." I said, "Why?" He said, "You left the crease." I says, "You got to be kidding me. Who cares? There's a minute left in the game. It's 5-1." He says, "Get back in the net. He's coming again." So he comes again. The pole comes, and I say to myself, "Well, he's going to go the other way for sure." Sure enough, he did. Deked the other way, and I make the save. And then I picked up the puck, and I skated at the Canadian referee, and I went, "Choo." And of course, I knew he'd catch it, right? I said, "It's your puck. Take it home with you." Yeah.
Well, I
Anyway,
tell you, just a hell of a story though, that team, because I wanted to make sure we discuss. There's so much to talk about in the legacy of USA hockey, and I think that needs to be said. That silver medal in '72. Not enough people discuss that and make note of it. It's all about the '80 and the '60 team, and you guys winning a silver medal. That's quite an accomplishment, Lefty. So
well, thank
congratulations
you.
to you on that. And
Thank you.
thanks for talking about it.
We're very proud of that silver. That silver that we won is really our gold. That's our gold.
Well,
I tell Buzzy Schneider every once in a while. Buzz and I are very, very good friends, and we go out and have a couple beers. We get a little lightheaded and have some fun, and I keep saying to him, Now listen, Buzz. I know you think we have more fun than you guys do. The only time you guys get together is when they pay you guys to get together, that 80 club. I says, we get together all the time because we love each other. And I says, that silver medal, I'll never trade that silver to your gold. You keep that gold you got because I'm not going to ever trade. He says, huh? True enough.
That's awesome. Well, we could talk a lot more about that, but I know we're getting a little long in the tooth here with this interview, but let's keep going. I
All
want
right.
to
Okay. One
look at that.
last shot.
One
Dakota,
last hat change. North Dakota pond hockey. Love it.
you got
Love
it. This is it now.
All right. Let's go on the next phase here. We have to discuss the next phase of Lefty Curran's career, and that would be some of these teams right here. I don't know which one this one is, but I'm going to start throwing up. Let's see. What year is the first year here, by golly? All right, here we go.
Ah,
72, 73.
that was the initial team, the inaugural team. The two goaltenders to my left and right. To my right side is Carl Wetzel, and to the left side is the great Jack McCartan.
Jack McCartan.
And yeah, that was our first year in
Okay.
hockey. Yep. That
And
first year of the league. Yeah. We
There
had
we go. Let's see
a nice team. We competed. We got into the playoffs. Lost to Winnipeg.
And this is 73, 74.
Right. And that would be the second year, and that's me in the middle with Jack again on the left, and Cheech Garrett, Garrett.
What do you call him, Cheech? Because he had the Cheech and Chong type of mustache?
Yeah. We thought he belonged down in Mexico somewhere. So we called him Cheech.
Okay.
He liked Cheech and Chong. He liked Cheech. We named him, so we called him Cheech. Good goaltender.
Okay.
He was just a kid, a junior. He was probably maybe 20, 21.
Well, we got some stories to talk about here, but then I think this one here, this was 74. This autograph picture I saw, but I would think that's 74, 75.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the latter years here would be the last one. I think this is 70. What year is that?
That would be 70. This would be 77.
Okay. So that would be the year that they went to this jersey here, right?
Yeah.
The red one.
Yeah. Nick Milletti from Cleveland, who owned the Crusaders, had signed or had ended his franchise there in Cleveland, and a bunch of guys were sent over. He actually is the one that put the money into this 77 season, 76, 77, the last year. And of course, we changed the uniforms. Yeah. I'll tell you, back when I played, I was trying to, as you see, and there weren't very many goalies doing this at that point in time. The only guys I could think of that could get down like that and play like that was Roger Crozier and also Esposito used to do it a little. I was trying to take Lowe away, and it took me.
You were before your time. You were ahead of your time. Before the butterfly style card.
Well, it started with Glenn Hall a little bit. If you look at Mr. Goalie, he was able to do those kinds of things from time to time to make stops. When I was in Boston, when I was in Boston, I went to the Bruins game playing. I think it was the Canadians, and I watched the game and I saw Glenn Hall taking Lowe away like that. He'd have both legs out and he could take Lowe away. And I said, I'm going to learn how to do that eventually. So from 18 or 19 on, I worked on it. And by the time that you see that photo there, I'm taking Lowe away quite well. So when there was a lot of traffic in front of the net and stuff, I would try and take Lowe away and reach and look for the shots at the same time. So yeah, I was doing that. In fact, that's why I hurt myself in 71 when I injured myself going over to the World Championships. So it's hard on the knees for sure.
Yeah, and that's why nowadays I don't like the styles that they have now. We won't go into the goaltending.
Well, no, it's all the same now. It's crab crawling. It's the crab crawling thing. It's even, yeah. And the pads are all built for them to do these things. You know, I know you want to go on with this, but I got to say, I told somebody one time, the bad thing about goaltending today, the best thing about them is they're way better than we are. Okay. They're big, they're strong, they're athletes. They could be quarterbacks, but they all come out of the same cookie cutter, the same model. They're all learned to do everything the same way. And the only people that would recognize one goalie from another goalie if they all wore white without their crests and what team they played for, the only people that would know and recognize the goalies today would be the mothers and the fathers and family members.
Right.
Because when you watch a game, everybody's playing the same way. But
I think
it's good.
I think the last goalie that didn't really play with any sort of style, he just stopped the puck. He didn't care how it was Dominic Hasek.
Yeah.
He would do whatever it took to stop the puck and up,
Yeah.
down, all around. Very unorthodox, but that guy
But
was
at least
nature.
he had a personality, though. I mean, his game was a personality. You knew it was him when he played.
Absolutely. And before forgetting, again, we're going long in the tooth here with this.
Yep.
I mentioned Dryden. We talked about Hasek. Can you please give me your feedback and thoughts on the great Tretiak? Because to me, I never went to his camp, and I wish I could because I couldn't afford to.
Yes.
Your experiences with him, because obviously he was a freak of nature and ahead of his time as well.
Yeah. Well, I played, the first time I ever saw him play was when we played in Sapporo. He was 19 years old. I was 27. And quite frankly, I didn't know. I mean, you don't discover a Russian goaltender when they play with all those superstars that are playing the game and not goal. So, not much to see. 6 months later, when he was still 19, I think he might have turned 20, is when he faced Canada in the Summit, that famous 8-game series.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched him play in that, and I thought, this kid is better than I thought he was, because now I'm starting to discover just how good he was. And long story short, just like you said, he was a freak. But his game was sort of, he was always in control, it looked like, when he played. That was the way he played goal. He wasn't a fancy goalie. He was always there, and he was always athletic, and obviously he was strong between the ears too.
Yeah, one of those guys where I like to say that he's so quick and good that some guys make it look like they're almost seeing it in slow motion. I mean, the way he played the game, he was just so good. And
Yeah, no,
training wise,
he was a special one for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, let's get back on track. I'm all over the place at times, but I did want to get your thoughts on him. So back to the Saints. I mean, we could talk a long time about this, but I want to hear some stories, and I want to throw up some pictures again, and I want you to discuss this. Just give me your thoughts. These guys right here, because I got some video too, but these three. Tell me about your experiences with these characters right here.
Well, the two of them, the young ones, my experience with Steve and Jeff were very brief. They didn't play a lot with us. You see photos of them playing there with us, but those were brief times. Jack was there all the time. He was our guy. He was our enforcer. And the other two were, most of the time they spent their time in Johnstown.
Yes.
Yeah. I think Jeff went on, and not Jeff, but the young one. I think he went on and played in the NHL actually later.
Kings.
I think he did play a year or two later. Yeah. Yeah, they were good kids. Jack was you talk about freaks. I mean, Jack was a freak. Jack was a guy, a skinny sort of guy, 6'1", probably weighed 200, 6'2", maybe 200. Big, kind of flat chested, no muscle really. Big paws, great big paws though, and you didn't want to fight him.
Yeah, well, tell me,
He was
tell
tough.
me something about
He was tougher than anybody that Philadelphia, the Broad Street bullies or anything.
yeah,
He'd beat the shit out of all of them.
Davy Keon. Tell me the Davy Keon story about what
Oh,
he said.
yeah. Well, we were on the road one time, and Jack probably had. I think we were in Birmingham, and Birmingham had a lot of. They had a lot of tough kids too, and I think Jack had just taken care of another guy in one of our games, and afterwards we're sitting in the bar chatting, and I said to Dave, and not to prep him or prompt him to possibly give the answer that I was looking for, but I sat there at the table with him and I said, David, you played in the NHL for 14 years, and here you are finishing your career with us. And I said, you saw a lot of hockey, and you saw a lot of fights. You saw a lot of goons, a lot of enforcers. So, tell me about Ferguson and some of these other guys from the NHL. They used to chase Bobby Hull around and this and that. I said, who was the toughest of all of them? And he said, well, some of those guys were pretty tough. He said, but the best I've ever seen, and he pointed his finger off to the right, and Jack was having a beer at another table there. He said, he's the toughest guy I've ever seen in my life. Never seen anybody fight like him. Jack was scary. I saw him take Rosare Paymont, who was a tough player, and he's playing with Hartford. And I'll never forget this. Jack drilled him down at the far end, down at their rink. Just ran him into him and da. And the puck comes back down towards me, our end, and I see the players coming back. And the puck is loose into our left corner. And I see Paymont. Jack has kind of got his back to everything near the corner. And I see Paymont coming, and I'm thinking to myself, Rosare,
This isn't going to be good.
You don't want to do this. And Rosare Paymont, he's not listening to me because I'm just thinking out loud. And he runs into the corner with Jack from behind. Jack swings around, takes those two paws of his, and all he did was go and tighten it up like a knot. And poor Razor was like this. And his hands were down here like this. And Jack let the one hand go, and he goes, boom, 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 boom. And then he goes, boom. And he's on the back. He's dead. He's on his back.
I also heard, we were talking about him fighting, but there was one other story about didn't he go up against Nick Fortu? And
Nick Fortu.
And you had to fly back on the same plane together?
Yeah, oh yeah. That's what Teddy Hampson said. Teddy was our captain. We shared the same planes. Money was scarce back in the day, so we shared the same plane back in a series. Now, thinking about this, you're in a series, and we get in first, and they got to come in because they get the back. And Nicky had his head down like this. You didn't want anybody to see him because he was all busted up.
Yeah.
Jack beat him up 3 times in the same fight. Nicky couldn't quit fighting him. They'd fight him again. Jack would beat the hell out of him again. And Nicky could fight.
He was a Golden Gloves boxer, too. That's what's amazing. Jack,
absolutely.
How tough he was.
Yeah, New York City.
Carlson.
Yeah.
Unreal. I know this guy. I'm going to show a picture, and I want you to. I know this was a brief stint, but do you remember this character? I'm sure that everybody knows this character because they have him in the movie. Just give me a quick thought on this picture right here.
Oh, don't scare me like that. Don't scare me. Don't scare me. Glenn brought him to town. Glenn brought everybody to town. He wanted people in the seats, right? So so it was time to bring Goldie to town. Now when Goldie arrived, you got to remember now, we had Gordy Gallant. Gordy Gallant could fight too, you know.
Well,
Gordy was,
hold that thought about Gordy, because he's got a story about Gordy
anyway,
too.
I'm gonna tell you a story about Goldie. Goldie, when he first arrived, we were in Houston, and Jack McCartan was assistant coach. And Glenn brings Goldie to Houston to play against the Arrows. And they give a room to McCartan because there's an empty bed. As a coach, he's got his own room. So they said, here, this guy's going to stay with you. So anyway, McCartan tells the story. He says, this guy walks in, he looks just like the photo. He said, I'm watching TV, and Goldie turns the TV from national news to cartoons. And then he goes into the bed, or into the bathroom, and he combs his hair and gets ready again, comes back out. Jack turns the channel back.
Oh boy.
Turns it over again, goes back. Goldie comes back, changes it to cartoons, and he says to Jack, he goes, listen, McCartney, here's the deal. You and I, right now, in front of the window out here, 16th floor, the guy who throws the other guy out the window gets to watch whatever he wants to watch, okay? Jack called Harry Neal, and he says, get me out of this room. I'm not staying with this guy. Now, that's the first experience that we had with Goldie. That's the first one. Now, later on, while we're back in St. Paul, he used to use these. I think they were called nunchucks. You know the
nunchucks.
Nunchucks. The nunchucks. He's nude. Gallant is just getting his clothes on, and Goldthorpe comes out nude in the middle of the room. Now, we got guys like Keon McKenzie. We got guys who've been everywhere. And they're going, well, what's going to happen here? He's doing these nunchucks nude. And he goes over. Listen now, Gordy Gallant is sitting on his bench, his place. And he starts moving in to Gallant, and he's nunchucking within inches of his face. Boom, 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 boom. And Gallant didn't take too much from anybody himself. And even Gordy was saying to himself, this guy's crazy. So he didn't do anything. That was Goldie. He wanted to say, I guess it was, who's the king of the castle? The king of the hill, and it's me.
I got another video I want to show. Speaking of, because this is Shaky talking about instant. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but I'll preface it.
Well, every time you've done these, I haven't heard them. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know why it is, but
maybe I'm not set up for that. I don't know.
But be that as it may, it's Shaky talking about when he, I think it was a player named Shell, busted Shaky's nose, and Shaky went little, you know, like
that was Shella, the defense,
and he went a little crazy.
From Houston, yeah.
So. Yeah. Anyway, I think Shaky got kicked out or something, or got in trouble or whatever.
He got kicked out of the game, first period.
Yeah. So I'm going to play this so they can hear it, and then because it's talking about the craziness, because it's just a little short clip, 40 seconds.
Go ahead.
So when the penalty clock was up for him to come back on the ice, my time was served. The penalty keeper says to him, Goldie, don't forget your stick and gloves. He says, I don't need them. I'll be back. And he went out onto the ice without his gloves and stick, chased John Shella, who was his cousin, all around the rink. The people went crazy, and John was just skating as fast as he could, trying to hide behind guys and all that, because he knew how crazy Goldie was. And finally, he had found himself behind the net, and Goldie in front, and Goldie had a charge. He jumped over the net and grabbed him, and they had a big beef, beat the crap out of him. And that's what happened on that night. But it was a classic. He was an unbelievable character.
He was just saying that was his cousin. Shella was his cousin too, and he chased him down and went behind that thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Is that the one where Shaky said when he got kicked out, you know what he did? He had his car inside, you know. He's the only guy.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, that's the story where
he had his car. He had his car inside. Everybody else had to park outside, but he got his inside in the corridor down below. And that's the one where he got kicked out and he got pissed off. He jumps in the car.
He went straight to the bar.
He's got all his gear on, and he goes to his favorite bar because he knows some of the guys will know him when he gets there. He walks in. He's got all his gear on. He says they bought him 2 or 3 of his favorite drinks, and he says, I got back in the car and went home and pouted. I was madder than hell. Those were the days.
Yeah. But the funny part was when on that little clip, you know, when he said Ogie was leaving the penalty box, and the guy in the penalty box says, "Hey, Ogie, you're forgetting your gloves and stick." He goes, "Don't worry, I'll be back."
I'll be back. Yeah, that's when he came out of the box. He was serving Shaky's prison time. Shaky was on his way to the bar about that.
You can't make this stuff up, though. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
It was crazy. There were a lot of crazy things that happened during. Of course, the Gallant Harry Neal story is. I mean, you watch Slapshot, and you know what? I'll tell you this. That was based upon a lot of what we were doing, and some of the stuff that we did would make Slapshot pale in comparison. We were doing it.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. I mean, imagine
speaking of Gordy. Speaking of Gallant.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Saints Gallant hits coach is suspended.
Well, of course. He was suspended.
That story in itself is like.
Well, that's the one where McCartan likes to tell that story because he was rooming with Harry. And
what did he say? What did he say? Harry, don't open the door. Don't open the door. Or something like that.
Yeah. He said first he calmly talked to Harry about not allowing him to come up. But Gordy wouldn't have it, and he kept calling back. And finally, when he called back the last time, Harry said, "Okay, come on up, we'll talk." And that's when Jack said, "You can't do that. Don't open the door. You can't." He said, "No, I'll talk to him a little bit." And he opened the door, and Gordy just dropped him right there. Bang. And then McCartan had to fight with him for a while.
That's what I'm saying. It's craziness. Yeah, when you think about the movie and you look at the characters that you guys played with, and the Johnstown characters too. I mean, you played with a lot of these guys, Lefty. I mean, it's true to life. I mean,
yeah.
Have you written a book yet?
What's what?
Have you wrote a book yet? I think you got to have a book in order.
Everybody tells me that when I talk to people, and I keep thinking, I probably should, but it sounds like way too much work.
Well, that's why I'm very appreciative of being able to track you down and do this conversation today, because by far the longest interview I've had with anybody. I mean, I'm
having more fun than you're having, Sid.
Well, I tell you what, this has been a blast, and I just don't know what else. I can't thank you enough, but I do have to wind it down because I got to head up to Duluth still today. But
that's okay. You got that car warmed up, didn't you?
Well, it's probably thawed out, but now it's probably frozen again. So.
15 below is nothing when you come from International Falls or Roseville. It's not a big deal.
I dress like an Eskimo. I dress like an Eskimo.
I'm going to go shopping. I'm going over to Cub. I'm going to go do some shopping. It's going to be nice.
There you go. So let's wind her down here. I know I could talk all day about that, but any last thoughts to talk about the crews you played with the Saints and those characters that became Slapshot? Because you did play with a bunch of guys that were on the movie.
Yeah.
Anybody else you want to bring up? I mean, there's so many different stories to talk about, but I tried to touch on a few key ones. But can you from your perspective, is there anything else you want to talk about from those Saints years? Because there's so many different stories.
Well, you know, no, I basically talked about all the things that I thought were rather interesting. I hope I was able to share some of that humor with it. There, you know, at the time when you're playing, you know, Doc Emmerich is, don't you? The
Well,
famous. Okay,
legendary Doc.
Everybody knows who Doc was. Doc was a member of our committee, our selection committee, for a few years. This is right after he'd retired. So we're on speakerphone, and we're chatting, waiting for all the committee members to arrive on speakerphone, because we're going to talk about our nominees, which I've talked to you about with Donnie. So Emmerich and I are talking, and Doc says to me, Lefty, was it really like that? The old Saints. And I said, well, don't you know, you were around, weren't you? He says, well, I was, but I was just about a 19-year-old or 20-year-old. And I heard about it, but I didn't really experience it. He said, was it really like that? And I said, Doc, there's two things I want to tell you about that are important. One of them is our games lasted an extra 40 minutes. So instead of finishing a game at 2.5 hours, ours were always about 3 hours and 10 minutes. And I said, and you know why, right, Doc? He says, yeah, the fights and everything, yeah. I said, the second thing I'm going to leave you with, Doc, is the Broad Street Bullies and the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, everybody thought not only were they winning the cups, but they're beating the hell out of everybody. The old Broad Street Bullies with Schultz and the Stork and Battleship Kelly, or whoever the hell his name was, and this and that. Yep. I said, I'll tell you this, Doc. With Holmgren, Carlson, Gallant, Goldthorpe, and a couple others, if we had played the Philadelphia Flyers, they would have beaten us 7-2 for sure. But when the gloves came off, you would have never heard of who the Broad Street Bullies were. They would have had to have a new name. That's how tough we were. He says, unbelievable. Unbelievable. He says, you're not exaggerating, are you? And I says, Doc, I'm giving you the truth. The total truth.
When you get guys like Dave Keon talking about how tough Jack Carlson was, and Dave Keon's a Hall of Famer, if I remember, that says it all. I mean, you guys had some tough squads. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Just amazing career, Lefty, and from the days back in the Bronco days, high school days, to playing in the internationally with a lot of different phenomenal players, to the years with the Saints, and then anything. Did you end up doing it? We're going to wind down, but after playing days, were you a scout, or what did you do, coaching or anything like that?
No, none of it really. I was happy. I was content about kind of stepping away from the game. I didn't even go to a lot of North Dakota hockey until I was probably till the late 80s. So I took 10 years, 12 years, I took a hiatus, stepped away, and I had a great career, and I had enough of it, and it was okay. I did help in Elk River a little bit with goaltending in the 90s. I would take the trip from here, Maple Grove, up to Elk River and work with some of their goaltenders. But that was very, very minimal, if you will.
Sure. No, I was just curious, because I don't know if you're involved. I know because some players stay involved in the game, either coaching or scouting or not. So
yeah. Well, thank you, Sid. You're quite a guy, Sid. I want to thank you for asking me to do this.
Well, no, I really, really appreciate it, because it's my, like I said, I'm not known, whatever. I mean, I have my own little niche. I do some broadcasting, and then I did a lot of games in my day. I started doing this before I got sick, and my first interview was Don Ross, by the way. And Don was
Yeah,
fabulous. And I
yeah.
can't say enough about Don. And he helped me get in contact with you because there's something about the goalie union, I never played at a high level. I thought I was okay in my day, but
You're
I've
still, you're
interviewed
a
a lot of
member.
goaltenders. I've
You're a member
interviewed
of the union for sure.
forever in the union.
You are.
And a lot of people, this interview, when I posted it and said I was going to do it, a lot of people have expressed a tremendous amount of interest. So I'm really appreciative. And there was a name, someone texted me this morning, early morning, and I don't know if you know the name or not, but a woman by the name of Jenny Herman. She said, Lefty lived shortly with our family for a short while when he was in Green Bay playing for the Bobcats. My dad, Dick Doherty,
Dick
played for the
Doherty.
Bobcats too. He was a
Yeah.
regular at our house. So
I lived with Dick when I was that trip when I was 18. I stayed with the Dohertys, and in fact listen to this one. I stole his Cortina, Italy jacket. They went out, they were going somewhere, partying, and I had a car. And I used to look at that coat. It was beautiful white Olympic coat. And I said, I'm going to take that. You could drink when you were 18 in Green Bay. I said, I'm going to put that coat on and I'm going to the bar. And I did.
okay.
And I never told Dick and his wife, Judy. I didn't tell him till probably 15 years later. But I took that jacket, and I'm telling you, I was getting a lot of attention with that Cortina, Italy.
I bet. Well, his daughter,
Olympic jacket. Oh, I'll never forget that. Beautiful. Yeah, great story. You and I will get together, Sid, personally. We're going to figure out a way to do that, okay?
No, for sure. But
We'll stay in
I do want to leave it with the way I finish up things, though, Lefty, is this. Because I've interviewed a lot of people, like yourself, and I've coached and broadcast and been around kids myself and coaching young. I want to ask you this, as I've asked everybody else. If I was a young athlete, doesn't have to be a hockey player, but let's say it's a hockey player, male, female, whatever, both sides, because both are playing at high levels now, both men and women. If a young player came up to you and said, Mr. Curran, what advice could you give me to improve myself as a player, as a person, whatever in general? What snippets of advice, words of wisdom would Mike Lefty Curran give the young hockey player right now? It doesn't have to be a goalie necessarily, but it can be a goalie.
Right.
But because the biggest thing I say from my perspective, I was a pretty good athlete, but the biggest problem I had was right here. I didn't believe in myself as much as I should have. And that's one thing I always tell people is you got to have that. But what would you give as far as advice before we part ways today?
Well, I would remind them of what a great environment that they are in today with all the opportunities that they have that we didn't have. Don't take those things for granted. Be very grateful that what you have today, 2026, is a special, special time. And it's been developed for a number of years. And you guys and girls have opportunities to improve yourself as an athlete and as a person because of the environment that you're in. So thank the time that you're in and be very grateful and continue to persevere. That's what I would say to the youngsters today. They're very fortunate to have all of what's available for them. These World Junior tournaments for just kids, the under 18s traveling around Europe, having an opportunity when they're 16 and 17 to travel Europe and to play against the best players in the world. It wasn't like that necessarily when we grew up. So take advantage of it, but be very grateful. Always. Thank hockey.
Wise words from the great Lefty Curran. So Lefty, I want to thank you again. Okay. I mean, goalie
There you go.
greatness right there. So there you
too.
go, folks. It was my longest interview to date, but definitely one we could have still went on longer if you wanted to, because there's so many stories you could tell. So I appreciate every minute we had today. Thank you so much, Lefty.
Thank
Have
you.
a great remainder of your day, and that's it. So long, everybody.
Let's stay connected. Thanks.